Okay, you're an executive, you're looking for a new role, and you're thinking about, hey, maybe I should go work for a small company, an exciting Silicon Valley-based, New York-based venture-backed company, or sometimes they're referred to colloquially as a startup. Well, we're going to talk today about what are the exact benefits that you can get from working for a company, how that's going to jumpstart your career and position you for leverageable success down the road. If that sounds exciting, come on board right now. Welcome to the Dream Job America podcast. I'm your host, Tim Tonella, and this is the place where we talk about all things hiring, specifically strategies, tools, and tactics for finding your next great dream job. This is part 2 in a series on the benefits of working for an earlier stage high growth company, which is often the case for executives who want to transition into a different environment from maybe a middle market company or a larger company. Today, we're going to be talking about something very, very important, which is what can I get that is leverageable by going to an earlier stage company versus staying in a larger company. Now, before we get going with that, I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button. It's a relatively new channel, and the more people that subscribe, the more likes I get, the more comments I get, that drives the algorithm so I can continue to go out there and make great content. So please go ahead and do that. Okay, as I said earlier, today we're going to talk about what are the benefits that I can get working for a smaller company that can be leveraged into greater opportunities as my path develops in the future. As we said earlier, we defined startups, earlier stage companies as companies that are not public. They tend to be anywhere from 5 to several hundred people. They've raised between $4 and $100 million in institutional capital. Those are the investors that are funding these companies. Drives the culture and the mission of these companies very often. And they may have a couple $1 million in revenue. Some of them may just be going to the market now, or they may be further upstream doing anywhere between 25 and let's say 100 million. To me, that's kind of a small company. And again, this is what I specialize in. This is what our firm specializes in, and it's very distinct. So today we're going to talk about a number of things that are going to help you decide whether this could be a potential opportunity for you when you're thinking about making career change or as you are actively looking for opportunities. So in the first benefits or advantages that you're going to derive from working for a company like this is impact and relevancy. And I can't underscore this enough, particularly when you've been working for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, sometimes things can be a little boring. Or I've been there, I've done that over and over again. It seems like if I grow my 5, 6, 10%, it doesn't really make any impact on the total revenues of the company in any significant way. It doesn't drive the stock price. It doesn't get me massive accolades with the chairman of the board. These are some of the issues you see with larger companies. But when you work for a smaller company, anything you do has a dramatic impact. And when we're talking about a executive level, so it could be a C-level position, but often in smaller companies, the VP level positions and even a director level position sometimes is the only leadership position handling that particular part of the company. So you may be the director of marketing, but you may be in charge of doing all the marketing for the company. You report directly into the CEO. So everything that you do in a smaller company makes a huge impact and it drives the needle forward. It may make the difference in the revenues. It may make the difference in the amount of new clients that allow you to have the traction level to get a secondary funding coming in. And maybe you get that first product out to market, that first big win that sets the company going on the trajectory. But everything you do makes an impact. And what I have found overall, particularly as executives mature in their careers, everybody wants to make that impact and everybody wants to feel like what they are doing is relevant. And when you're doing something super relevant, you're getting recognized by everybody, you feel really, really good. And the other thing I'll tell you selfishly, as a recruiter that's placed thousands of leaders into tech companies like this, when you're looking for something new, you're looking to make a career change, you're looking to make a job change into another company, the number one thing that you want to talk about and the companies really want to know is how impactful were you on that organization? Why was that important? How did you measure that impact? And how did that impact actually drive the success of that company overall? When they see stories like that, they start thinking about bringing resources in that can make those same types of impacts in their own companies. And you're going to definitely get that experience working for a small company. The other thing we talked about is what I call title jumping. Now, of course, if you're the VP of marketing at a $20 billion company, you may be reporting into a senior VP of marketing and a CMO, a chief marketing officer. There's lots of different layers. And a lot of times when you want to jump up to the next layer, it can take you a long time. You can be blocked out by other people that are in those positions, or the companies may want to see a lot of tenure and a lot of support before they lift you up into that title. Additionally, if they don't think you're totally ready for that position, let's say you're director of marketing, you want to get a job as a VP somewhere, they may start looking, because they have tremendous resources, and they'll look for other people to bring in as well. When you work for a small company, it's very easy to title jump. A lot of times someone who will go to a small company because they're a director of marketing and they want to become a VP. And in many cases, based on their experience, their ability to be adaptable and change, and their overall desire and work ethic, they can get that job as a VP right from the get-go because that's part of the negotiation. Or in other cases, what I've seen is they come in and say, hey, my dream's to be a VP. If I can do a great job and hit these milestones in the next 6 to 12 months, then maybe you can move me into that position. That's part of the negotiation. So it's more opportunities, a chance to grow higher. And then if you do, God forbid, have to go to another place, a lot of times now you're coming in at a higher level and you can set the terms of your compensation more along the lines of someone that's at a VP level versus a director. Huge benefit that we see all the time, and it's one of the big negotiation tactics that are used to bring on a candidate to attract them to maybe leave a bigger company and join a smaller company, oftentimes at maybe a lower pay. Now, another thing that's super cool about working for a small company is that you get to actually drive the culture of the company. In small companies, the cultures don't necessarily exist. They're kind of being formed. Sometimes it happens naturally or organically. Sometimes it happens by design. But for a culture to really flourish, it takes other people, growth in the company, and people adapting to those principles, those values, and being part of that culture. And when you work for a small company, you actually get to drive that forward. And that also is very rewarding. It can be very fun. One of the things I often see when larger companies that are going through changes are looking to bring change agents in that can help to impact change the culture of their company. And in order to do that, they need to see that you've done that historically. And when they see that you've been able to drive that at a smaller company, a lot of times that's enough to bring you in to help be that change agent at a larger company. And you can get that experience working at a younger company because it's all new and it's all happening and you're on the ground floor. Now, a fourth benefit involves what we call innovation. Now, of course, large companies innovate all the time. They have zillions of resources, and you hear about the Googles and the Facebooks and the Hewlett-Packards and all these great companies that are doing things. But if you think about it, every great company that's a leader in their space started as a small, innovative company. Without the ability to innovate, you're going to die because you don't have the resources, the know-how, the brand recognition, the network, and the global distribution to compete against a monster in their space. You have to outsmart them. You have to out-innovate them. Early stage companies are built on the premise of innovation, and that's super exciting. And again, as companies are growing and changing and hiring new people, big, middle market, small, everybody's looking for innovators, and you can cut your chops on innovation working at a smaller organization. Fifth benefit is that oftentimes you're much closer to the customer in a smaller organization. Because understanding the customer and understanding that market space is going to be mission critical to the survival of that company, and also helping to hone the direction in which they're going to go, where they're going to invest their resources, where they're going to make their bets. So you see senior leadership teams tend to be really in tune with the clients. You're in product or development. You're working closely with the customer. You're working closely with the salespeople and the marketing people. All this is tied in. The customer is king with a small company. And so getting that experience, maybe you already have in sales, but maybe you don't. But that element is something that you're going to learn in a small company that you can take and apply again if you look for another job in a small organization or certainly one that's larger. Number 6 is job security. Now, on the surface, this may seem absurd because you're thinking, wow, small companies, they come, they go, they may not make it, they may not get any more money, and then you're out and you're looking for something new versus a large company where it has lots of resources. And there is a truth to that, but hey, lots of large companies, as soon as they have a couple bad quarters, you start to see massive layoffs, massive risks, and there isn't necessarily security at a larger company either. But there is some inherent security working for a smaller company because in many cases, and I'm assuming you're doing a competent, good job here. That's the one premise we're going to make. You're very connected to that senior management team. You're part of their ideas. You're driving that culture and you're running that organization. And I tell you, for a small company, to lose a competent person and then to be out 2, 3, 4 months, going through a process, working with a recruiter, trying to find an acceptable replacement, that gap period can be very detrimental for a company. So if you're a competent employee and the company's doing well, I would challenge you by saying you have as much job security, if not more, than necessarily working for a large company. And number 7, last but not least, with a little bit of controversy sprinkled in here, is the potential for high stock or equity returns. When you work for an institutionally backed, not necessarily a family backed, these are companies that have professional investors like private equity firms or venture capital firms. They are driving ultimately for the success of the company to have what we call an exit. And for the types of folks that I work with at the top of the food chain who are the executives running the companies, most of them are negotiating equity or stock packages as part of their compensation plans when they start, and certainly part of the compensation as they move forward and they grow. Now, of course, so many of these companies, they don't make it and there's zero equity. And maybe if you worked for a big company, were part of their normal stock plan, you would dribble out with some benefits over time, and maybe over a very long time that could accumulate into something. Or maybe get really lucky and you join Facebook, you're the 5,000 employee and you stick with it. That could all happen too. But here's what you get when you work for a small company. It's what I call the Google dream, that potential that company does get acquired at a big valuation because of your efforts, and or that a company ultimately goes public, then the potential for that equity that you're holding can be worth a ton of money. And that's where you hear these great stories about people having that one big hit and now they're sitting on the beach and they're retired as multimillionaires. You even hear stories about when stock was dribbled down to the assistants on the ground floor, they got their piece of the action too, and they came out as big winners. So there is a risk trade-off. But if you're someone who wants to gamble and say, hey, if I'm going to put my effort into this, my blood, my sweat, and I'm going to make a big impact with a small group of people, and we're going to make this thing a success, then when we do have that final exit, I have an opportunity to really achieve extraordinary gains that in some cases are completely life-changing. And that's what you get working for a startup or venture-backed company. So the main overall theme I want you to take away from this video today is that most of what we talked about, you're developing skills and attributes working for a small company that can be extremely leverageable going to another company. When you interview with another company, when you're stating your story, your position, your messaging, what do all companies want to hear? They want people that can enforce or change or drive a culture, build a great team, have them be part of those principles and the values that make that company what they are today. They want people that are agile and flexible, who can operate in really challenging, really tough environments, people that got the scrappiness and the chutzpah to not quit through the tough times. And they want people that are highly innovative and that are used to working not only with everybody across the organization, but even the leaders. Where else do you develop that skill set than in an early stage small company? And even if you have an experience and you want to transition back to the other one, believe me, when you talk about those aspects, the larger company is going to be super attracted to you, and that's going to be a point of differentiation that you bring to the party that others who haven't worked for a small company can't. So if you like what you saw today, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. It really does make a big difference, a huge difference in my ability to get success on the algorithm and continue to make great content along this lines. Next week in video number 3, part of this series, what are some of the risks or potential hazards of working for a small company? We talked about all the benefits, but yeah, they are laden with a lot of time bombs, and it's worth it for you to understand both the pros and the cons before you decide or even contemplate whether this is really the best place for me. So we're going to talk about that next week. For joining this video, please go download my 4-step preparation guide. You can find it at www.america-guide. The link is also in the show notes here in YouTube.